My name is Lee James, and we are here today because I'm in the process of going through my process and my journey at 47 and trying to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life.
The time I met Lee James, I was the manager.
Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and thank you so much for watching this program, because for half an hour we are focusing on good things, godly things, beautiful things, comforting things. It's very important to do that, because if attention is focused on grief and on sad things, on things that really are not desirable, then we become hopeless and we need hope. So focusing our attention on good things restores hope. And hope is very, very important, because without hope it's very difficult to even get up in the morning. I'd like today, first of all, to thank all of you who put so many amazing things on internet, especially on YouTube, because it opened up my imagination to creativity. Why is it important? It's very important for educational purposes. I know that many people are focused on things connected with around the workplace and family, but it's very important for us to learn from each other. In fact, this is one of the greatest peacemaking activities. If people learn from the heritage of the past and become teachers. I have some very young kids in my family, and I realized how little they know about their heritage. It's almost as if the attention was focused only on current things, but heritage is extremely important because it is connected with our very nature. Our life comes from our parents, their life from their parents, and all the way the generation lines till Adam and Eve. And we know that Adam and Eve were in paradise, and then after the fall they ended up in exile here on earth. So deeply rooted within us is desire to be connected with God in paradise, in heaven. And that's the spirit that underlines all humanity. We all have that within us, that desire. Now, many people ignore spiritual heritage. Many people think that spiritual heritage from the parents is irrelevant, and they focus on other people's houses and properties and all kinds of other things that are available currently. But spiritual authority that comes from our parents defines our natures. Because if I listen to spiritual authority of another mother, then my mother's spirit becomes very anxious. So I have to listen to the spirit of my mother and my father as the foundation of life. And likewise about you. We all have different mothers and fathers, but that spiritual guidance from within us defines our will to live, our hope to live, our will to live. Even if those parents are not perfect, they did give us something that is perfect, life. And that's enough to create a foundation of honor. And those of you who know the Bible know that there is commandment about it, honor thy mother and thy father. So when our attention today is on what other mothers and fathers gave their children, and then the desire to have that rather than let those children enjoy that heritage, created huge conflict within the spirit of the world. And that conflict is very strange because it is not a war in the traditional sense. It's simply attack on the very nature of human life. And it is not a good thing, because when people defy the nature of their life, they fall into illnesses, diseases, depression, disrespect for life itself. So I think that before we can focus on anything else in the context of society, we have to admit, so to speak, the value of spiritual authority from our parents. And that's when all of us, all over the world, will become grounded in what is perfect. Now, if parents were not perfect in the sense as Jesus Christ is, it really can be remedied by the presence of God within us. And that's where the foundation of peace and justice comes. And from this presence of kingdom of God within us, we have perception about how to remedy other things. Because if we ground justice in things that are loveless, then we just create more strife. And search for the so-called love speech is futile, because God is love, and without God, love doesn't last that long. So let's begin thinking about it while listening to this wonderful video that I found on YouTube. And let's contemplate it. isn't it beautiful? And I love this particular melody because it really reminds me of times when my mother would take me to Gdańsk Cathedral, a very ancient church that has been in this place, the house of God, for 800 years, even more. And my mother Sophia was certain that just being in this church was an opening to search for God and to reception of God's blessing. So I come from Christian spiritual heritage. And it's very important for me to listen to the voice of faith within my life, because that's what I got from my parents, and they got it from their parents, and all the way to those in those three branches who were first Christians. So if someone would try to suppress this, they would create horrible pain in my heart and my spirit. So no matter what justifications would be given that those suppressions are in the name of justice, I would say that the foundation of justice within my life is from spiritual authority of my parents. And then other things have to be harmonized with this for justice to be created within our lives. And I'm now encouraging you to draw attention to this, because there is so much strife and so much reliance on political institutions to bring justice that people forget themselves and they get very sick. And when I looked at the root of a lot of unhappiness and a lot of ill health, it became clear to me that a lot of this is connected with obeying wrong spiritual authority. And I started practicing this within my life, and I have been regaining health. So I think that we have to rethink the very notion of what we understand today as health coming from external sources. I think that we have to have balance in this situation, that we understand that health has many dimensions, and there's health that comes from spiritual authority in life that our parents gave us. Then there's a situation which, if that health is not very good, then we need to find remedies for this and then look at different other sources of health. Some people pray to God, some people go to medicine. There are situations of injuries where immediate medical care is essential because of a dangerous situation which a person can find himself, like after a car accident. So we have to have this very sophisticated understanding of diverse sources from which health can come to us. And when we understand multidimensionality of health, we will also create a wonderful vision of healthcare, because healthcare is not only insurance systems that lead us to find help from people who are specialists in medicine. This is extremely important. Even God says in His wisdom that we should always have doctors nearby, because we never know when we may need them. So it is a very important part of healthcare. But health is a concept wider than just health care that comes from professional forms of medicine, medical intervention. Health also comes from being in alignment with our parents, in alignment with our family, with our neighbors, with the country that feeds us, that gives us place to live, ultimately in the world and in the kingdom of God. So in order to regain health, we have to understand it in terms of nature and nature's relationship to gods of nature, to God himself who creates nature, and then all the other forces that work within nature. I use the word gods because some people do not understand that God of Israel, Abraham and Jacob, is the only God who created nature. Some people worship nature in other ways, like in Taoism or in Buddhism. But they do recognize how important nature is. Now, if we regain understanding of health in terms of being in alignment with our origins, and if we then understand that spiritual authority is connected to our heart, in fact, some people think that our biological heart and spirit heart are so interconnected that they cannot function if they are separated by illness or by different blockages. So we have to have that understanding within us that authority shouldn't just come from laws, but authority is written within us. And that's why we have to learn from it. And it will be very different in different families and different context of our origins, but we cannot have peace if we deny that, because then there will be always this need to create laws to substitute spiritual authority from our parents, and those laws written by other people cannot create peace within us because those laws don't have the knowledge that we innately have. That's the way we are created, and that is something that is equal in all of us. Every person on earth was created by parents. So we all have that knowledge from life itself about how to live, how to be, how not to be. And that spiritual authority of our origins must be respected, because if it is ignored and people are forced to obey things that are against those laws that are written within our bloodline, then people develop hopelessness because they feel that the very life force within them is being forced to do things that are against what they think is right within them. And it is very important for us to understand that this is law of spiritual authority of our parents, and American founding fathers understood this law very well. That's why they wrote in Declaration of Independence that Americans have right to life. That's what they meant. Right to life today is understood as being against abortion, but in origins of American founding, right to life meant that a person has right to live the way they are created by their parents and to obey that spiritual authority within them in the context of social peace. So that law referred to life itself, not to pursuit of happiness. That's a different right to pursuit of happiness, right to liberty. There are different rights. Right to life originally meant that we have right to ignore spiritual authority of other parents and forces that would try to destroy that life. I believe that once that life is created and has breath, is born, that life has right to life. And that is independent life. There's a lot of controversy over what happens before the person is born, and I'm not qualified to talk about it, but I am qualified to affirm and assert the need to shield life once it's created, independent life with independent spirit, to have the right to life. And that right to life includes needs that life has to be sustained. So at the minimum, social rules should focus on making it possible. Eventually, we need to develop connection of that life to right of liberty, right of pursuit of happiness, to improve the life, to enhance it, to make it happier, more interesting. But life itself, as force to be alive, needs to be respected. And we have to focus our attention on this, because so many people's lives today are destroyed because of some bad law that makes them lose their job. They lose their job, lose their places to live, lose their health, and die because of that. So in this particular case, the right to life was disrespected. And I think that system of justice that doesn't focus on life and right to life as foundation is inherently unjust. Because what's the point of having a big house if the person has no life to sustain it? So life is more important than anything else in the context of justice. Once that life is asserted, the right of life is asserted, then we can create balance of understanding what other things are in relationship to that life, and then we can define what is right and what is wrong. Because if we create definitions of good and evil while ignoring right to life, then those definitions make no sense, because they ignore the very foundation of creation of right measures. So we have to have that vision that allows us to have the right measure of things, and the foundational right measure is respect of our lives. And I think that when we understand this principle, then we'll be able to reform the system of justice so that it is filled with God's love, with compassion, with understanding and wisdom.